from the Environment Agency, who's going to particularly focus on the Manchester Urban Pioneer Project. Jessica.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. As I was saying, my name's Jess Skeggs, and I work for the Environment Agency as part of the Urban Pioneer programme. I'm going to talk to you today about planning for nature in urban environments, but from the perspective of our programme, and drawing on some of the experiences from ourselves, but also our partner organisations, because it is quite a collaborative programme. I'm going to firstly give an overview of the programme itself, and then go through some of the key work that we've undertaken. So the Urban Pioneer is one of 4 pioneer programmes set out to understand how we might manage the environment in the near future, with a focus on people, health, the economy and growth. In other words, to help frame the environment as an enabler, not a blocker. These 4 pioneer programmes are located in distinct landscapes throughout England. So we have an Urban Pioneer, which I'm going to talk about, which is based in Greater Manchester. We have a Catchment Pioneer, which is based up in Cumbria, looking at catchment scale approaches. We have a Landscape Pioneer in Devon, looking at kind of rural landscapes, and then a Marine Pioneer, which is split between Suffolk and Devon. The vision for our Pioneer programme, is written by our collaborative group, is to make a clear and evident contribution to Greater Manchester's natural environment, engaging and connecting people with nature, maximising their health and economic benefits through investment in the environment, and creating sustainable growth and a good quality of life. So as you can see, it's quite an ambitious programme. The 4 pioneer projects were created to explore ideas and potential policies for inclusion in the government's 25-year environment plan, and then to support the implementation of this. Their purpose was to understand what does and doesn't work in quite a safe environment, to then pass on that knowledge to other areas throughout the country. For example, what works in an urban context might fall down when scaled up to the catchment scale, so it's important to learn these lessons now in a test and trial phase. The 4 pioneers were all given the same 4 key themes to explore, and these were testing new tools and methods as part of a natural capital approach, demonstrating a joined-up integrated approach to planning and delivery, pioneering and scaling up the use of new funding opportunities, and finally, growing our understanding of what works, sharing lessons learned, and best practice. Each pioneer is led by part of the DEFRA organisation, with the Environment Agency leading the Urban Pioneer. But they are extremely partnership projects, depending heavily on the support of local partners, including both local and combined authorities, wildlife trusts, farming and fishing groups, the private sector, and our other DEFRA organisations. They were announced in August 2016 and are coming to the end of their 3 to 4 year life frame, so due to conclude in March 2020. One of the fundamental principles for the programme is that it has got absolutely no funding associated with it. So we have to draw on the kindness of our partners and also what's available locally to deliver this. So just frame this in the fact that there was no funding to go with it. Replicability is also another core key principle of our projects. So what works for us should be able to be taken, scaled up, scaled down, and worked throughout other urban areas. So what have we as the Urban Pioneer focused on? On screen are the high-level work packages or themes that the Pioneer has worked on over the past few years, and each of these has been led by a different organisation. So to start at the bottom, we looked to develop an evidence base, and that's been led by ourselves at the Environment Agency, helping to demonstrate a place-based approach to delivery that improves policy and decision-making, which has been led by Natural England, to create a natural capital investment plan, which has been led by the Combined Authority of Greater Manchester, to develop a demonstrator project that shows the benefit of natural capital approach on project funding, led by our water company United Utilities, and to develop and test a communication and engagement model, which is led by our local Wildlife Trust Lancashire. They've been represented here in a loose chronological order, but in reality, activity across all 5 areas has been going on over the project. The programme was designed to be at the cutting edge of available technology, data methodologies, academic thinking and policy influence, hopefully bringing people from all different sectors together. It was much about understanding what does work, but also what doesn't work, meaning that we need to figure out so that we can share our best practice. This means that not all that we have delivered or discovered or contributed to during our programme is actually ready to be used as business as usual. A lot can be, but it helps to kind of push the environment agenda a little bit forward from non-traditional partners. So I'm now going to go on to some of the big pieces of work that we've undertaken. Excuse me. One of the first pieces of work we set out to do was create a natural capital account for Greater Manchester and its 10 districts. So for those of you unfamiliar with the terms natural capital, excuse me, it can be defined as the stock of renewable and non-renewable natural resources, so we're talking plants, animals, air, soil, minerals, that combine to provide a yield of flow to people. These benefits can provide economic, social, environmental, cultural or spiritual services, and the value of these to people, ecosystem services, are presented through a natural capital account. And this can be either qualitatively or quantitatively, and both have their place. Through the work that we've undertaken, we have been able to show that the natural capital assets, so the trees, the water, everything like that, in Greater Manchester provides over £1 billion worth of benefits to its residents, businesses and public bodies. We've been able to split this into 13 different categories from a range of different topics. So this ranges from avoided costs to businesses through climate cooling, through trees, avoided healthcare costs from the reduction of stress from noise pollution, which has been mitigated by trees, and also the house price uplift that you get if you live close to a green space. On screen is just a couple of some of the health benefits we've been able to map. As well as highlighting the monetary value, we've been able to show the flow of benefits starting from the natural capital asset through to the service it provides, and actually who is benefiting from this, be it the public purse, the private purse, or a personal individual. There are a wide range of natural capital benefits that we could have included in our study, but we've taken quite a heavy health focus, and the reason for that is it's one of the greatest challenges in Greater Manchester. Greater Manchester has pretty much one of the worst health outlooks across the whole country. Can be quite a relatively deprived area. Younger people have one of the worst, have a shorter life expectancy, and older women have the worst worst life expectancy in the whole of England. Nearly 70,000 people have a mental health or well-being issue, and more than a fifth of 50 to 64-year-olds are out of work, many because of mental ill health. It's also estimated that by 2021 there'll be over 35,000 people diagnosed with dementia. So health is quite a strong challenge for Greater Manchester, and with more than £1 million being spent on poor mental health by our health and social care partnerships. So the work we've undertaken as part of the account has been instrumental in allowing us to open up these ongoing conversations about the environment. We have been able to have a conversation with our health sector about the current benefits being provided by Greater Manchester's green spaces and natural capital. And we've been able to frame that in the same language, so quality adjusted life years, that NICE used to evaluate drugs to be funded by the NHS. This allows us to very loosely compare the benefits from cardiovascular drugs with the benefits provided by green space, helping to put the environment in a completely different context, along with these health sector decision makers. As long as a overarching wide natural capital account for Greater Manchester, we've also been able to undertake a similar, more smaller scale, site-specific scale study. One of the examples of this is an accounting study we commissioned on the River Mersey flood alleviation scheme, which is up in Warrington. As a bit of context, it's a huge scheme. It protects around 2,000 houses. It was delivered in 6 phases over 5 years at a cost of around £34 million. As part of this study, we looked at the natural capital benefits provided by the area both pre and post the scheme, and those on screen show the benefits over the 100-year life cycle of the scheme. Not surprisingly to any of you, the biggest benefit comes from flood risk reduction, as that's what the scheme was meant to deliver in the first place. And it's also important to note that this isn't all from natural capital. There are softer kind of embankments, habitat creation as part of the scheme, but a lot of it was traditional hard engineering. But what's really interesting to look at is those aspects that were more natural have been able to provide additional benefits which were completely unknown during the decision-making process. So we're talking the recreation, the physical health benefits, air quality and carbon sequestration. If you add all the numbers up, they top over 10% of the benefits associated with the flood risk. So we get an extra £70 million worth of benefits that just wasn't factored in at all. The study also looked into a what could have been done differently type of scenario. So if the scheme had been delivered to maximise the natural capital benefits and ecosystem services without compromising on the 2,000 houses that it protected. In this specific case, there was an area of salt marsh that could have been created, but this was taken out during the optioneering phase. The study found that if this had been implemented, the carbon sequestration rate of the salt marsh had a value of over £3.5 million over the lifetime of the scheme. It's just something to keep in mind. So in these urban areas which are quite constrained geographically, there's not much space. You've kind of got to look at different ways of bringing in these benefits and thinking about traditional schemes differently. All of this work has helped to highlight the hidden benefits that nature provides and hopefully bring them a little bit more forward into the decision-making process. So taking the work of the natural capital accounting we've done, we've also developed an ecosystem services opportunity map. So this tool takes the accounting work and is based on land use types. It's an online tool, so if you do want to have a look at it, it's on GM mapping. So basically, the tool assesses each land parcel against the potential for its physical, social, economic, geographical and cultural characteristics. It offers the potential to intervene and improve the function of the ecosystem services, which can result in an uplift in the natural capital value. Opportunities arise in areas where there is a combination of feasibility and need. The tool helps to flag up areas with greater opportunity in red, so in the example on screen, and proceeds to score the chosen area based on 9 ecosystem services ranging from water quality, flood mitigation, food production, timber and air quality. The layer also offers potential actions that could be undertaken in these areas of opportunity to improve the delivery of these services. So if you actually click on the graph where it's red, it will bring up a pop-up list of potential interventions you could use. So for example, if you wanted to maximise air quality in this area, you could plant some street trees or have some green commuter routes. All of this is quite well known to us in the environment sector, but for other decision makers it kind of opens up the opportunities and gives them more options. So all of this work helps to improve the understanding and the scale and the value of ecosystem services and natural capital across Greater Manchester. It helps to inform key partners in the public, private and third sectors and where they can help to develop or improve these natural capital benefits. So moving on to another aspect of our work. Another key item, and arguably maybe one of the most important when it comes to planning for nature in urban environments, is biodiversity net gain. So as a concept, biodiversity net gain is an approach to development that leaves biodiversity in a better state than it was previously. When you have a new housing development, where that has an impact on biodiversity, it encourages developers to provide an increase in appropriate, and the appropriate word is key, natural habitat and ecological features over and above that which is being affected. From this, it's hoped that the current case for biodiversity loss through development will be halted and some of the ecological networks will be restored. So this process involves the use of a metric, so the DEFRA biodiversity metric, which is a proxy for recognising the negative impacts on habitats arising from development. And it calculates how much new or restored habitat you need to provide. So the basic premise is you take your red line boundary of your development, you take a look at it pre-scheme, work out the different habitat types, different areas. So it's quite a simplistic tool to use, but it fits in with the current capacity that developers have. You then do the same assessment after you've put in your development, and hopefully you should have an uplift. You may already be aware that following the government consultation, it was announced in March that biodiversity net gain will be mandated in the upcoming Environment Bill. It's also a key concept of the 25-year Environment Plan because of the thinking that we've undertaken as part of the Urban Pioneer. In Greater Manchester, we've commissioned guidance and training materials, as well as research with housing developers and local authorities to understand better how the people on the ground will actually implement this policy, and different ways that they can do it. So you can see a green wall there on one of our train stations in Manchester. We've also taken research into the governance required to ensure this is undertaken successfully. It's all about maintenance here. You could come as a developer, you could put in a fantastic woodland, but if in 10 years you just let it go to pot, then you've not really increased the biodiversity, and it's not the point of the policy. So you've got to make sure that it's governed properly, and our ecology unit is looking into this. The implementation of this biodiversity net gain is going to adhere to the mitigation hierarchy, so ideally it needs to be provided on site, and if not on site, close to where the development is happening. And this is to ensure that the greatest benefits are held by those residents nearby that are actually affected by the loss in the first place. There's no point putting in a massive development in South Manchester and then offsetting this down in London, because those residents that have lost that habitat, which is probably quite a big local importance to them, are not going to gain the benefits, and we'll just have a housing estate to look at instead. It could also be undertaken through habitat banks, so there could be a system whereby developers put a pot of money into a habitat bank, so you've got a well-managed, well-maintained habitat that you know will keep providing benefits into the future. So the previous two bits of work help you understand the current baseline amount of nature, the benefits it provides, and where to place it for maximum opportunity. But to ensure the provision of this into the future, you need to maintain it, improve it, and create more of it. And let's be honest, this all costs money. Traditionally, this money comes from the public purse or through philanthropic investors. As part of the Pioneer and our Natural Course project as well, we've been able to create a natural capital investment plan. And this looks at ways of mobilising existing and new sources of funding throughout Greater Manchester. It looks at the roles for different types of potential investors, identifies different finance sources, helps to outline a pipeline of potential project types, and then also looks to explore different funding mechanisms. At the end of this report, there are 3 finance models that have been identified in the plan as being most near readiness, so to speak. So the first of which is a place-based portfolio model. And this idea is based on leasing out blue and green infrastructure to a trust, which could then look at exploiting revenue options, be it through a cafe or parking system. A habitat and carbon banking model, which is all about selling credits from additional actions that increase biodiversity or stored carbon to an organisation to compensate for their unavoidable impact on the environment. And also a sustainable drainage system. And this model has an established revenue mechanism through a reduced water company drainage charge, which I'll go into a bit more detail later. So this is all well and good, but one of the key barriers identified was the fact that the skills and capacity to write the business cases and attract investors is lacking in most traditional environmental organisations. So you're talking about the charities. They don't have the skills and knowledge to write up business cases. So one of the main key recommendations from this plan was the setup of an investment readiness fund, which will help to kickstart the investment and help to unlock different sources of funding. This fund will basically provide capacity building and technical assistance to organisations to help them secure investment to scale up their environmental impact, all of which helps to improve and create more natural environments within urban areas, where space is typically limited. So one of the 3 finance models I just mentioned has been taken forward and is being tested in practice. So this is the sustainable drainage model. There's a short video here which gives a little bit of an overview of the project. So as the video shows, one of our local junior schools, Moorlands Junior School in Sale, has used a natural capital approach to help reduce its surface water discharge through a SUDS retrofit programme. By doing this, the school basically drops a band on their wastewater charge. So you've got to make the rain garden big enough and the disconnection big enough to drop down a charging band, because it's all based in area. United Utilities base it on the area of the site. And the concept of this is that the money saved helps pay for the upfront cost of the system, and that could be a 5, 10, 15-year payback. And once that's been paid back, the school then retains those savings year on year. And for this particular site, their wastewater charge was around £5,000 a year. As well as the financial benefits, the school kids love it. If you go on a site trip there, they're so proud, and they absolutely love taking visitors around and telling them all about it. They've learnt so much about the water system, sustainable drainage, and it's that engagement with the future that helps make this such a project have so many wider benefits than just the financial mechanism and the money saving. So whilst this demonstration project was on a school, the same charging system works for publicly owned sites as well that are a commercial customer of United Utilities. So it has the potential to be rolled out much greater across Greater Manchester. So following on from this and the end of the Pioneer in March 2020, we're really lucky in Greater Manchester to have just been awarded an Urban Innovation Action funded project which is called Ignition, and that's all about looking at nature-based solutions and climate mitigation, but also looking at the investment cases for these and having different pipelines of fundable projects, which hopefully by the end of this we will increase Greater Manchester's blue and green infrastructure by 10%. So it's quite an ambitious target, but hopefully we'll get there. So the culmination of all our work we've been doing leads to compelling messages for change, improvement and investment in our natural environment for a vast array of reasons. One of our aims is we wanted to engage with the decision makers so they can make better informed choices. We wanted to inform the non-environmental sector in the benefits they derive from the natural environment so they could consider their actions and the impact they make on it. We also wanted to take the environment sector itself on a journey and talk about the natural environment in a different way. So if you want to find out any more about the work we've been doing, our email address and website's on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessica. So we've got time for a couple of quick questions, if anyone has some, please.
Richard Blythe, Town Planning Institute. The Warrington scheme is quite interesting. So kind of an observation really, but hopefully in the future we won't have unknown benefits because you'll have done the right environmental impact assessment in the first place, which sort of causes me to ponder that calling them environmental impact assessments is quite interesting because the assumption is that it's all bad, where actually a real assessment will be what are the benefits and impacts of a scheme, and let's identify them all at the beginning so that we can then get greater support for it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the point. Like you say, the impact assessment shows the negative impact that you have on the environment, but in this case we've proven that the benefits are huge, so it helps open up that conversation, also help challenge and change the ways decision making makes made. Yeah, it's a really good point. Yeah.
I was just wondering, obviously you can only do, given you've got an unfunded project, you've been doing some fairly simple models with existing data.
Yeah.
How does the uncertainty of those models, obviously those are pretty crude estimates,
Definitely,
how
yeah.
does that change the decision, change the conversation? Does it reduce, when you talk to the health people, do they say, well actually, you know, would Manchester, from the basis of the kind of stuff you're doing now, actually make new investments just on the basis of natural capital? How much more uplift, as it were, and certainty would they need?
That's an interesting one. So as part of our accounts, we do have a RAG status, so a red, amber, green, on how actual confidence we are in the numbers. But what's really interesting is when you talk to those decision makers, they're all very high level. They're not too concerned with the actual ins and outs of the detail. So even just being able to go in and open up that conversation and be really upfront about these numbers and say, let's be honest, they're pie in the sky. They're not based on really sound scientific knowledge. It's more about opening up those conversations and showing that nature has a value, because it's all often overlooked in the decisions.
A last quick question.
So, judging from experience, personal experience working with NFM projects, right, by DEFRA, where natural capital is the main or almost exclusively what is funded. Often those are trying to say that the amount of ecosystem services equals or greater than the flood risk that they reduce. When you had about 10% in yours, but do you have any estimate of the 700 million flood risk reduction? How much is contributed to natural capital and how much is hard engineering?
I don't know off the top of my head. The scheme, I don't know the exact percentages, but it was a mix of actual hard walls, embankments, but also about opening up a park and the flood basin there, so I don't know.